The night bus is where the city sends its problems. The drunks, the desperate, the people who have nowhere else to be at 2 a.m. I learned that lesson the hard way in London. My name's James. Back in 2019, I was working late shifts at a restaurant in Shoreditch. The tube stops running around midnight, so if my shift ran late, I'd have to take the night bus home to Hackney. That particular night, I'd stayed until close. It was nearly 3 a.m. when I finally got to the bus stop, cold, tired, just wanting to get home and collapse into bed. The bus pulled up mostly empty, just me and maybe 4 other passengers scattered across the seats. I took a spot near the middle, put my headphones in, and stared out the window. 2 stops later, they got on. 3 guys, late 20s maybe, already loud, already drunk. They stumbled to the back of the bus, laughing and shoving each other. I kept my head down, kept my music playing. Mind your own business on the night bus, that's the rule, but I could feel them looking at me. The comments started a few minutes later, at first just loud enough for me to hear over my music, then louder, more direct. I made the mistake of turning around. One of them grinned at me. "What you looking at?" I turned back, said nothing, but I'd already made myself a target. I felt hands on the back of my seat, shaking it. Then someone flicked my ear from behind. The laughter got louder. I looked toward the driver. She was watching in the mirror but hadn't said anything yet. An older woman. West Indian, maybe. I'd seen her on this route before. One of the guys leaned over my shoulder. His breath stank of cheap lager. "Give us your phone." I didn't move. I said, "Give us your—" I remember thinking, this is it. Not a mugging. Something worse. The bus lurched to a stop. Not at a bus stop. Just stopped. In the middle of the road. The driver stood up from her seat. She was bigger than I'd realized. Solid. And she was holding something in her hand. A small hammer. The kind you'd use to break glass in an emergency. "Off my bus," she said. Her voice was calm, almost bored. "Now." The 3 guys looked at each other. One of them laughed nervously. "You can't just—" I said off. She took a step toward them. The hammer stayed at her side, but everyone could see it. The lead guy's smile faded. He looked at his friends, then back at the driver. For a moment I thought he was going to do something stupid. Instead, he spat on the floor and walked to the door. His friends followed. The driver watched them step off into the night. Then she closed the doors and sat back down. She looked at me in the mirror. "You all right, love?" I nodded. My hands were still shaking. She pulled the bus back onto the road like nothing had happened. I rode that night bus for another 6 months before I moved out of London, and every time I got on and saw that driver behind the wheel, I felt a little bit safer. I never learned her name, but she saved me from something that night. I don't know what those guys would have done if she hadn't stopped, and I don't want to know. I almost missed the last train that night. Sometimes I wish I had. My name's David. I live in Chicago. Back in 2021, I was commuting from the Loop to my apartment in Rogers Park. That's about an hour on the Red Line, depending on delays. I'd been working late, some project deadline that doesn't matter anymore. By the time I left the office, it was past 11 p.m., and the platform was nearly empty. The train pulled in and I got on the last car. Habit. I always rode in the last car because it was usually the quietest. There were only 3 other people in the car. A young woman with headphones near the front, an older man sleeping against the window, and a guy sitting directly across from me. The guy was staring at me. Not glancing, staring. His eyes fixed on my face like he was trying to memorize it. He was maybe 40, average build, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. Nothing remarkable about him except those eyes. They never moved. I looked away, checked my phone, pretended to read something. When I looked up, he was still staring. The train rattled through the tunnel. Stations passed. People got off. Nobody got on. By Belmont, it was just me and him. I considered moving to another car, but something told me not to. If I moved, he'd know I was scared, and scared people make easy targets. So I stayed, kept my eyes on my phone, tried to breathe normally. The man hadn't moved, hadn't blinked, just sat there watching me. Then he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting for something and finally got it. He reached into his jacket. His hand moved slowly, deliberately, not rushed, like he'd done this before. My heart stopped, but before he could pull anything out, the train lurched to a halt, doors opened, and 3 transit cops walked into the car. Random security check. They didn't even look at me, just walked through checking the car, making sure everything was in order. The man's hand came out of his jacket, empty. He stood up slowly, nodded at the cops like nothing was wrong, and walked off the train at the next stop. I rode the rest of the way home with those transit cops in the same car. I didn't say anything to them. What would I even say? A guy was staring at me? But I know what I saw. I know what he was reaching for. And I know that if those cops had been 30 seconds later, I wouldn't be telling this story. I've taken hundreds of ride shares, Ubers, Lyfts, never had a problem. Until that night in Phoenix. My name's Melissa. I was visiting my sister for Thanksgiving in 2022. She lives in Scottsdale, and I'd gone out with some of her friends to a bar in downtown Phoenix. Around midnight, I called an Uber to take me back to her place. The app said 5 minutes. The driver's name was Carlos, 4.9 stars. Seemed fine. The car pulled up. Black sedan. I checked the plate. Matched the app. I got in. Carlos was friendly at first. Asked about my night. Made small talk. Normal stuff. But about 10 minutes into the drive, I noticed something. We weren't going the right way. I knew the route. I'd driven it twice already that week. We should have been on the 101 heading north. Instead, we were heading east, away from Scottsdale, into the desert. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice casual, "I think you missed the turn." Carlos glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Shortcut," he said. "Less traffic." At midnight, on Thanksgiving. There was no traffic anywhere. I pulled up the app. The GPS showed us way off course. I tapped the Share Trip button and sent my location to my sister. "Actually," I said, "can you just take the regular route? I get carsick on back roads." Carlos didn't respond. The car kept driving east. The lights of the city were fading behind us. Ahead was nothing but darkness and desert. My heart was pounding now. I gripped my phone, ready to call 911. "Carlos, I need you to turn around now." He looked at me in the mirror again, and this time he wasn't smiling. "Relax," he said. "We're almost there." Almost where? I didn't wait to find out. I grabbed the door handle. We were going maybe 40 miles an hour. I didn't care. I'd rather break my arm than find out where he was taking me. "I'm going to jump out of this car," I said, "or you can turn around right now and take me where I asked to go." For a long moment he didn't say anything. Then he laughed, soft, almost disappointed. "Fine." He pulled a U-turn in the middle of the empty road and drove back toward the city. 20 minutes later, I was standing in my sister's driveway. I reported the driver immediately, filed a police report the next day. The detective told me I wasn't the first complaint about that driver. There had been others, women, all of them reporting similar stories. Wrong routes, locked doors, veiled threats. They never found him. The account was deleted. The car was probably stolen or borrowed. I still check the route every 30 seconds, even when the driver swears we're going the right way, and every time I get in a car with a stranger, I remember how dark that desert road was, and how close I came to disappearing on it. I still hear his voice sometimes, in that space between sleep and waking, whispering things I can't quite make out. "My name's Sarah. This happened in New York. The F train. 2020, right before the pandemic shut everything down. I was heading home from work. Rush hour. The car was packed. Standing room only. I found a spot near the door, holding onto the overhead bar, just trying to survive the commute like everyone else. That's when I noticed the man beside me. He was older, maybe 60s, dressed nicely, grey suit, polished shoes. He looked like someone's grandfather, someone respectable, but he was whispering. At first, I thought he was on the phone. Bluetooth earpiece maybe, but his hands were empty, and he wasn't looking at anything, just staring straight ahead, whispering. I tried to ignore it. New York subway, you see weird stuff every day, but the more I listened, the more I realized something. He was whispering about me. I couldn't hear everything, just fragments. Her hair shouldn't be here. Follow her. My blood went cold. I shifted away slightly, tried to put distance between us, but the car was too crowded. I couldn't move. The whispering continued. Knows I'm watching. Pretty when she's scared. I looked around desperately. Everyone else was in their own world. Phones, headphones, no one was paying attention. The man still hadn't looked at me, still staring straight ahead, but the whispers were getting louder, faster. Get off at her stop. She won't scream. I felt tears building in my eyes. I didn't know what to do. If I confronted him, what would he do? If I stayed silent, would he follow me home? The train pulled into 42nd Street. Crowded station. Lots of people. I made a decision. I shoved through the crowd and practically threw myself onto the platform. I didn't look back, I just ran. up the stairs, through the turnstile, out onto the street. I found a police officer near Times Square and told him everything. He looked at me like I was overreacting. "Lady, it's New York. People talk to themselves all the time." He didn't write anything down. He didn't ask for a description. But I know what I heard. He wasn't talking to himself. He was talking about me. I changed my commute after that. Different train, different time. I never saw him again, but sometimes late at night when everything is quiet, I swear I can still hear whispering, and I wonder if he ever found someone who didn't run. I've worked night shifts for 15 years. You learn to live with the weird hours, the empty streets, the feeling of being the only person awake in a sleeping city. But that night on the BART train, that was different. My name's Marcus. I work security at a hospital in Oakland. This happened in 2018. I was coming off a double shift, completely exhausted, catching the last train home to Richmond. The platform was empty when I got there. Not unusual for 1 a.m. on a Tuesday. The train pulled up, I got on. The car was completely empty. Again, not that strange. Late night, middle of the week. I sat down, closed my eyes, and let the rattle of the train lull me towards sleep. We passed through the first station, then the second. I opened my eyes to check where we were. The car was still empty, but something felt wrong. The lights were flickering, not constantly, just enough to notice. And there was a sound underneath the normal train noise, a low hum, almost like a voice. I sat up straighter, looked around. Empty seats, empty aisles, windows showing nothing but black tunnel walls. Then I noticed the doors between cars. The window in the door was dark, but as the lights flickered, I could have sworn I saw something on the other side. A shape pressed against the glass, watching me. I blinked. The light steadied. The window was empty. I told myself I was imagining things. Exhaustion, sleep deprivation, my mind playing tricks. The train stopped at the next station. Doors opened. Nobody got on. But I heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate, coming from somewhere behind me, getting closer. I spun around. The car was empty. The doors closed. The train moved on. I was breathing hard now. I could feel my heart in my throat. Every instinct telling me something was wrong. Something was here with me. The footsteps started again. This time from the front of the car, moving toward me, step, step, step. But there was no one there. I stood up, moved to the center of the car, looked in every direction. Empty. The footsteps stopped directly beside me. I could feel it, something standing right next to me. I could feel the cold radiating off it, could hear breathing that wasn't mine, but I couldn't see anything. The train pulled into my station. The doors opened. I ran. I didn't stop running until I was out of the station on the street, under the orange glow of the streetlights. I stood there, gasping, looking back at the station entrance. The train pulled away. Just before it disappeared into the tunnel, the lights in my car flickered one last time, and I saw something in the window, something that looked like a face, pale, hollow. watching me. Then it was gone. I called out sick the next day, and the day after. When I finally went back to work, I started driving. I haven't taken the train since. Some of my co-workers laugh when I tell them why. They say I was just tired, seeing things. Maybe they're right, but I know what I felt standing in that empty car. I know something was there with me, something that shouldn't exist, and I know that if I'd stayed on that train one more stop, I wouldn't have gotten off at all.